Good morning. Good morning, everyone. Welcome, welcome. We are back. We are back to actually the first live edition of the Quarantine Film Series. You may be familiar with what we've been doing, the Quarantine Concert Series, but we're actually doing film conversations now. We're not actually showing the movies, but we're talking to the people behind the movies, making the movies. All right, so by now you know what we're doing, going through an international pandemic. The prescribed therapy is to stay home, stay safe, physically distance. But a lot of the concert gigs were canceled, and this year I was about to release my first movie, and with my friend Shane Obudo, and all of the film festivals were canceled. So we had to put away our tuxedos and we had to put away our cravats. Actually, we were just probably going to wear blue jeans, but and then we have to wait. We're kind of in this waiting pattern, and I realized that a lot of filmmakers are in this situation where they worked many years, and unfortunately, there's not a great platform, or at least to my knowledge, with these festivals, to put the spotlight on the directors and these incredible filmmakers. So we thought, why don't we do a brand extension and use a platform that you're sharing in with us every night to focus on some great filmmakers. And so that's where this broadcast comes in. I know it's in the morning, a little strange to see me with my uncombed hair in the morning, but I do want to welcome an incredible director, someone who's multi-talented, someone who is a capable man. He's a great. You should just read his history. He's the Renaissance man, and talented, and has a great sense of craft and professionalism. Please welcome to the show the wonderful Frank Licari.
Thank you, thank you. Wow, what an intro! I gotta have you around all the time. That sounds good.
Exactly. Tell me first, where are you broadcasting from today?
I am broadcasting from the Mecca that is Rutherford, New Jersey. I'm in my home office studio. As you can see, it's sort of an amalgam of things behind me. You've got an accordion back there. You've got a microphone, a couple of guitars, and in front of me is my editing suite. So I'm just sitting
Awesome.
at my desk. Yeah.
We could probably knock out a quarantine film and concert series at
There you
once.
go. We'll just put it all together.
Yeah, exactly. Well, with you can. I want to talk and sort of focus on this incredible. Well, first of all, how's the quarantine affecting you? Is it are you been safe, healthy? What were you going to do that you can't do now?
Right. Well, thankfully, the family is healthy and safe. We've kind of been like everybody else, just sort of staying put and abiding by all the rules and just getting out when we need essential things like food and things. But we've been inside, and so the family's healthy. My extended family so far is healthy. So I can't have much more than that. Just happy for that, and blessed that we have been able to get through this a little bit unscathed in terms of that. So.
Good. And you were going to be debuting your film at a great film festival.
Yeah.
I think it's South by Southwest. How did that affect you? Were you surprised, alarmed?
Well, like everybody, we saw it coming, right, a few weeks prior, but we were hoping that back in early, I guess late February, that we could make it through. But yeah, we were supposed to world premiere actually at South by Southwest. It was going to be as most filmmakers know, that's one of the big ones, and very excited to be accepted. And obviously, it was a validation of the project, but also the exposure that a festival like that brings. I don't know that many people know, but it's actually the largest event of its kind in the world. It's actually bigger than the Olympics. In 9 days, they do 6,000 events because it's tech and film and spirituality. There's a whole sort of host of things that they do there. So music, obviously. So that was a big disappointment to have that canceled, and obviously it puts a dent into your ability to market the film as we would have at that festival. So.
Totally.
Yeah.
So let's talk about the film.
Yep.
Jose Feliciano, and I mean, obviously know who he is, but for people who don't know, maybe share with who he is and why you wanted to do. I mean, doing a documentary is a big, couple years of your life at least, probably. Why did you want to spend so much time on this particular artist?
So full disclosure, I actually toured with Jose in 2012 and 13 as his. I directed and produced his live show, his world tour, and I was also his backup singer, tour manager. I did a bunch of things for him. So before that, I obviously knew who he was. I got hired to do that show, but it's amazing when you tour with somebody of that magnitude. And so for those of you that don't know who he is, most of you, if not the entire world, would know the song Feliz Navidad. So that's a song that he wrote and sang that we sing every Christmas, every holiday season. And they sing it in every country, and they know all the words in different, it's been translated. But before that, Jose is an 8-time Grammy winner. He's just an icon. As a matter of fact, that was the original name of the movie. It was going to be called Icon, Jose Feliciano. But he's a singer, guitarist. He is the first ever musician to stylize the national anthem in 1968, ever. The first ever Latin crossover artist. The first Latin to ever win Best New Artist. He has so many firsts. He's one of the first to interpret music by combining styles. So he took his Latin roots in Puerto Rico and combined them with his soul, R&B, folk, rock, blues, and created this sort of original style. And there's just so many things that he did that a lot of people don't realize. So when I toured with him, and I was able to tour with him in Asia, in Australia, in Latin America, and just to see the breadth of his reach, to hear people in Korea, for instance, South Korea, sing his music phonetically, of course, because they don't. It was a lot of it's in English and Spanish, but it was an eye opener. I think more so than even I thought. I think he was bigger than I thought he was, and in other countries, he's in Latin America, he's Sinatra. Here, I think the key and why we wanted to do the documentary was that he's underappreciated, probably undervalued as a what he means to the sort of American musical landscape. And that's why my partner and I decided that it was a film we needed to make. I had told him 8 years ago, somebody needs to make a film on your life. This needs to be a musical, a Broadway musical, blind since birth, never been able to see. And what he was able to do just on the guitar alone, he created his own style. Those of you that don't know, he plays an actual nylon string guitar. So a guitar that, classical guitarists would play, but he plays it percussively, he plays the blues on it. He plays with a finger, and it's just a sound you just don't hear. It's uniquely his, and it came about by accident, which I can tell you the story if you'd like. It's a quick one.
Yeah, tell me.
So he was blind from birth, and his mother had 11. They had 11 siblings, and she didn't know what to do with them. They weren't equipped to sort of, how do you raise a blind son and with that many kids around? So one day his uncle brought home an old guitar, and they just gave it to him but pretty much left him in his room. And, today it might have been an Xbox. Well, I don't know what it would be if you were blind. I'm sure they have an apparatus that you can play other things. But back then it was a guitar, and they gave him a nylon string guitar, and he taught himself to play. And he taught himself to play on the level of a virtuoso. I mean, if you watch, forget today because he's still unbelievable, but if you go back and you watch some of the videos of him in the 60s and 70s, it's mind-blowing. Jimi Hendrix called him one of the greatest guitarists he'd ever seen, if that makes any, if that gives you any idea. So really amazing. And it's just a soulful singer with just so much richness and honesty and heart to his voice, which is why I think so many people in the world gravitated to him.
Gotcha. So putting this together, when did you sort of start the process?
Yeah, it feels like an eternity. It's coming up on 3 years that we, from initial sort of saying like we're going to make this film, to then traveling to Puerto Rico and to across the country and assembling sort of all the people that we wanted to interview, the important people. And so it's been a 3-year journey, and I could officially say we really just finished it right prior to South by. So
yeah. And how did you think about the mix between archival footage and fresh interviews? How did you? Sometimes, I mean, I've seen great movies do both, but there's a vitality always to the live interview. So how do you navigate both those aspects?
Well, it's interesting. Jose is a very colorful fellow. So if you've ever seen an interview with Jose, he is just how to describe him. He's a brutally honest guy. He just tells it like he feels it in the moment. He's not censored. He's not programmed or produced in a way like, he doesn't get himself ready for an interview. It's just, that's who he is. So when Jose talks about anything, let alone his life, it's very candid and honest. And so once we interviewed him first, and once you get Jose's take on things, you kind of have to use it. And so he is the spine of the entire film. We were lucky enough to also get some pretty great names like Carlos Santana and Gloria Estefan and Emilio Estefan and Rudy Perez. So people that were not only important in his life that he wanted, but also people that were affected by his career. So those interviews kind of formed the narrative. And then there's so much great old video on him, from 1965 on. Just so many great show appearances with, Johnny Cash and Bing Crosby and Dick Clark and Sammy Davis and all these sort of icons. And so you have to show, with any great musician, you sort of have to show him in his prime to really appreciate, he's 75 now. So it's like anybody, right? You see any musician in their heyday, that's how they hit it to how they hit the landscape. And it's quite remarkable to watch.
Yeah.
So,
biggest challenges putting this together, what would you say?
I mean, talk to any indie filmmaker, right? It's the funding, it's the time that goes into it. The thing about doing a documentary, if you have integrity, right, is making sure you have a responsibility, I think, to get it right and to get to the honest truth. Because, remember, you're interviewing a musician about himself. So you don't want to make it a puff piece. You don't want to make it one-sided. You have to sort of take, but in this case, it was making a tribute really to his life, because there wasn't a lot of out there about him. But, the biggest thing about the movie was trying to get across how sort of massive he was, and yet how much more massive he could have been had it been not for the aforementioned national anthem, which when he did stylize it in 1968 at the World Series, he was blacklisted. It was protested against. It was a time in our history where you didn't do that. You stuck to traditions, and he went out on a limb and sort of was creative and original. And he got a lot of backlash for it, and he was blacklisted by record companies, radio stations here, and they stopped playing his records for 10 years. And so that was the catalyst for him going overseas and becoming such a huge star overseas. And I don't think he ever really got the traction back that he would have gotten, because he blew up in 1968, and by the end of that year, he had done the national anthem, and then it all sort of started to crumble. But as we know, in 1970, he came out with Feliz Navidad, which put him back sort of in the public spotlight. But it was never what he would have been had that not happened here in the States.
Yeah. I can't wait to see the film. What are your plans for getting it out there? And for people sort of watching at home, once you have sort of an update, where can they find that update?
Right. So we have a website. It's josefelicianomovie.com, which we'll post everything as we go. Obviously, gearing up to South by Southwest there was a lot of buzz going on about it, and that was exciting. And my partner, I haven't mentioned her, but Helen Murphy and I, she was my co-director, co-producer. She's anybody that knows music in the music business. She's an industry veteran. She has been my partner through this and another film that we're working on. But we are in talks with some distribution companies. I obviously no deal in place at the moment, so I won't mention names, but it's coming. It'll be coming out soon, and we'll announce it both on that site and the social media pages, Jose's social media sites as well.
Cool. Actually, our incredible guitarist who's playing tonight on the concert series has a question. Shambu says, what does Jose see as his legacy or inspirational message for a new generation of artists?
That's a great question. Shambu, from spending as much time with him as I have over the past 9 years, Jose will tell you that his sort of biggest strength was his biggest weakness, and it's back to being his strength, is that he's always artistically he's always come from the heart, and it's gotten him into trouble, as I just mentioned. And I think as musicians, and this I can talk about this even as an actor, filmmaker, writer, whatever, we get it. There's an interesting place that you have to sort of live, right? If you want to make a living at this, at some point you have to be some sort of commercial, right? You have to become commercial at some way. You have to make money at doing what we do. But artists, by nature, hopefully that's not our first goal, right? It's just to express and be creative. And so it's that fine line, right? It's the difference between arts and entertainment. I think you read that section in the New York Times and it's like, what's art, what's entertainment, and how do you find the balance? Are you a really great, unbelievably honest band, but yet you're playing in your garage? Or are you that great, honest band that's able to sell tickets, right? So Jose would tell you, always, always, always coming straight from the heart, be as pure to who you are as an artist. And that's what he's always been. And again, sometimes it was to his detriment, but I think that's part of what his legacy is that his interpretation of music has always come from a real place. It wasn't to try to do anything to catch attention. It was just, look, I'm a Latin roots. I love soul music. I love folk music. I love flamenco music. He puts it all together, and every song is different. And I think he sings that way as well. It's just, there's no rhyme or reason. There's no technical. That's why every time you watch a Jose concert, even his original songs always sound different. He never plays the same song the same way twice. So I think it's just being an artist, right? It's as I'm sure you know, it's coming from the heart, and that's the purest form of what we do. We express ourselves in how we feel in that moment. And if you're doing that, I think, I hate to speak for Jose, but I really think that that's what his legacy is about whenever you listen to his music.
Does he like the film, Jose?
He loves it. Okay. Yeah, he hasn't seen the latest. We showed him a rough draft because he's been a partner with us through this whole thing. So this whole journey, and his family as well, and his wife and kids. And yeah, he loves it. And I think it's nice for him. We call them legacy artists, right? All these cats that have been around, the Willie Nelsons and, Kenny Rogers before he passed away, and, Lionel Richie, and we call them legacy artists, but, they set the groundwork, right? They laid that groundwork for people. And, to me, he's one of the, him and Paul Simon and a bunch of others in that era. They are the reason why we have what we have now. I don't think you have Ed Sheeran and John Mayer. You don't have John Mayer if you don't have Jimi Hendrix, and you don't have Ed Sheeran if you don't have Jose Feliciano and Paul Simon and James Taylor. And so, I think it's a wonderful sort of trajectory, and it's cool. Amazing.
Before we let you go, you're working on a project on Vanilla Ice, right? So tell me about that.
Another interesting personal story. I've known Rob of Vanilla Ice he just texted me literally as we were on this interview. We have a call later today, but Rob is, I host a film festival down in South Florida. Shout out to the Palm Beach International Film Festival and the Student Showcase Films down there. But Rob is gracious enough to come and present every year his music video. We named it in his honor. And I've known him for about 6 years. And the same thing I said to him about 6 years ago. I said, somebody needs to make a real movie on your life. And he said, people have said this and that, and people have come out and they've never brought it to, fruition. And I said, well, I'm going to do it. And so we've also got, that one is also completed, just about, I shouldn't say completed. We're in the last 2 weeks. We're doing the musical score right now for that. And it's called Ice Ice Baby, The Truth. And that one, we were able to interview all the original posse members, the dancers, the DJs, the record execs. And we got the real story on everything that we always heard controversially in the media. I think for Vanilla Ice, he's another crazy story of just, a guy just bolting to superstardom. He's the first ever hip hop artist to go global, hit #1. And then of course, came down just as fast. And we really tell the story of how that happened and why it happened, and we get everybody's perspective, and it's a really completely different movie than Jose, but it's fun. It's fun, and I'm really excited to finish that one up and get that out. And so
Awesome. I mean, it's prolific at doing two movies at once. I know it's probably a heavy lift.
three.
Three. Yeah.
There's another one.
What's the third one?
There's another one. That's why the pandemic hasn't really affected me as much, because I'm
Yeah.
sitting here with my editor. We have a third one coming. I did a movie called The Fall of Destiny. It's a true story about two land partners, I guess. One of them is a big name, the CEO and founder of Subway, and it was supposed to be the first eco-sustainable city in the country, was supposed to be built, and due to corruption and greed, those plans were laid to rest. So it's a really interesting story. I'm doing the documentary. I'm also writing the book, and I've already written the screenplay. So that's
Wow.
another one. Yeah.
We'll stay tuned for that.
Yeah.
Frank, wishing you all the best with Jose Feliciano
Thank you.
behind this guitar. Of course, the wonderful movie on Vanilla Ice, and this new venture for you. Thanks for being a part of this, and we wish you so much luck, because it takes a lot of effort not only to make the movie but to get it out in the world. So fingers
Thank you.
crossed, life gets back to normal. We can get these movies out onto this. I hope I can turn on the TV one of these days and see these movies. I'd love to.
That would be fantastic. And can I just give a quick thank you
Yeah.
to our editor, Paul Haigua, on the Jose Feliciano film, our editor, Ed Cunanan, on the Ice film. I didn't mention them in the interview, but they were unbelievable. Both first-time full-length feature film editors. So it's exciting for them. And obviously, my other partner, Kwa, at the production studio. We have such a great team around these. So I don't want
Awesome.
anybody to think it's just
No, it's
me.
cool. It's cool, and that's
Yeah.
that's a good rehearsal for the Oscar speech too.
Oh, God, yeah.
So-
Let's hope.
All right, man. Have a good one. Thanks for being part of it.
Thanks very much, guys. Appreciate it.